Друзья, всем привет! Сегодня нас ждет очень и очень интересный выпуск из США. Ниной Зариной, огромный ей респект, просто спасибо за все возможные слова благодарности. Она записала интервью с Стивеном Хаасом. Стивен, наверное, многие знают, а те, кто не знает, в прошлом известный американский легкоатлет, бегун, специализировался в беге на 5 и 10 тысяч метров, сейчас является тренером и агентом. Кстати, у него тренируется, например, Эдвард Чизрик, может быть, кто-то знает, наверняка слышали или видели в Инстаграме, это кенийский атлет, который сейчас тренируется и выступает в США, там, 17-кратный чемпион NCAA, в общем, заслуг немерено. В этом интервью речь пойдет о тренерской, агентской деятельности Стивена, и это очень интересно, потому что, конечно же, большие различия между агентской и даже тренерской деятельностью в США и в России. Мы сами прекрасно знаем, что в России, например, у нас контракты спортсменов обеспечивают, в частности, государство, на Западе это спонсоры. И, в общем, я советую вам обязательно, особенно профессиональным, кстати, спортсменам, послушать. Вы узнаете много интересного. Почему говорю послушать? У нас внизу, конечно, будут субтитры на русском языке, но тем, кто знает английский, конечно, лучше слушать первоисточник, поэтому мы оставили английский язык, не стали накладывать голос, мы оставили только субтитры. Стивен в прошлом профессиональный бегун, выпускник университета в Индиане, операционный директор Total Sport агентства, и вот как раз беговая команда Total Team, и также он является координатором базы Total Sport в Европе и в Бельгии. Ребят, и отдельно рекомендую подписаться на аккаунт в Инстаграме Стивена, очень полезно, очень интересно, там как раз-таки многие ребята, которые тренируются под руководством Хааса, и очень, конечно, очень интересно для любого бегуна, я думаю, must-have.
We're going to do a little speed endurance session today, so it's a little complicated. We're going to do 6 sets of 400, 300 for the first 4, and then the last 2 we'll do 400, 200. I'm on you. Just try to be smooth and relaxed. 14, 15.
Steven, could you please tell us at first a little bit about yourself?
Yep.
Who are you? What is your path?
Yeah, I ran in college at Indiana University. I had a good college career, pretty good times, and was recruited to run professionally for New Balance after that. I ran for New Balance for 6 years. My college coach was also my professional coach, and he also helped me get involved in coaching professional athletes after I had stopped running. At the same time, I started working for a sports agency. Now I definitely have 2 roles. I'm a professional running coach for athletes here in Flagstaff, and I also work for Total Sports Management as an agent. So yeah, I have 2 roles and enjoy both of them a lot.
Cool, thank you so much.
Yep.
As I know, you are the coach and the agent at the same time.
Yep.
Could you tell us how do you split time between these 2 roles, and what do you like more?
Yeah, I get asked this a lot. There's probably not a lot of agents that are coaches. There are a few, but I don't know that I like one over the other. I think I would always want to coach. It's just a passion of mine. I really enjoy it. But I also enjoy the Asian aspect as well, and I think the way I manage athletes, I'm really involved in what they do. So it sort of takes on a similar role as coaching as well. Just because I try to be in communication a lot with the athletes. I try to keep up with what they're doing, how their training's going, things like that. I definitely don't think I could choose one over the other, but definitely think it's a time management thing to be able to do both. And I have good help in both roles. I have really good help. So within the sports agent role, I have a team of people at Total Sports that I rely on to help me out. Chris Lane, who's my boss and managing director of Total Sports, he's obviously very involved in contract negotiations and involved in every aspect really of the agency. And then I have Natalia, who helps out a lot from a finance standpoint. Adam helps out a lot from a standpoint of trying to secure some marketing things, and yeah, it really helps. It's more of a team than just me managing the athletes individually one-on-one. And then from the agency standpoint, I have Shayla here, and she's very involved in the coaching aspect of the athletes here too. And we just have a really good group of athletes that work really well together. So My normal day is sort of coaching in the morning and on site for practice, but then spend most of my day on the computer and on the phone helping from the agency standpoint.
So it's usually like 50-50.
Yeah, I would probably say that. I think from a coaching standpoint, there's a lot more like communication with the athletes, even, just trying to find out, how they're feeling on a day-to-day basis and trying to adapt the training towards them as individual athletes. So I think there's a lot more communication from the coaching standpoint. But even from the agency side of things, I really like to sort of keep tabs on everybody and what they're doing.
What is to be the agent for an athlete?
Yeah.
So do you have any strong commitments? KPIs, commitments, so something measures goals.
Do you mean like athletes that I recruit or athletes that I manage?
Is this a different things?
I think, what do I look for in terms of like times and things like that? Is that sort of what you're asking?
Times, money, I don't know, some achievements. So when you negotiate this their athlete, so what is the end goal? So do they want, for example, a big salary and you promise them that like in 1 year they will achieve that, or something else?
No, I think it depends on the individual athlete. I mean, every athlete has different goals and different ambitions for why they want to run professionally. Some athletes are really focused on performance, and they want to compete at the Olympics and they want to compete at the World Championships and they want to be in the Diamond Leagues, and performance is the main thing. And then we as an agent have to come in and figure out what's the best coach, what's the best group, what's the best contract for that athlete. And then you have some athletes that maybe their number one goal is to make as most money as they can, running, and sometimes those things don't, they don't match up. So yeah, I think every athlete's is an individual, and we try to cater towards that athlete as an individual. I mean, sometimes we as an agent will make less money on an athlete if they want a smaller deal with another company because they feel better about that company or they feel better about that coach. But ultimately, that's the athlete's decision, and we're just here to help them secure what they're looking for out of their career.
What is usually like the length of the contract?
Yeah, everybody's contract is different. So some athletes come out of school who are, NCAA champs and have a huge resume, and a shoe company might want to lock them down for 5 or 6 years. And then you have some athletes that maybe it's a little bit more of a risk. They don't know how successful that athlete could be, but they still, want to take a chance on them, and maybe it's a 1 or 2 year contract. So everybody's a little bit different, and we also want to talk to the athletes and figure out what they're looking for. And some athletes don't want to be locked down with a company for that long. And some people want to, they're going to get into a situation with a coach or a training group, and maybe they want a 1 or 2 year contract just so, they can get more exposure to what that group's going to be like. But every athlete's a little bit different.
How many athletes do you manage?
I don't know. I'd have to look somewhere, probably.
But I don't think it's thousands. It's
No. Probably somewhere around 50. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure right now. I mean, as an agency, we manage a group of athletes, but Chris heads up a certain number of athletes, and I head up a certain number of athletes. So as an agency, we try to cover everybody. And again, it's just it's not just me. We have a whole team of people that help out, so it makes it pretty manageable.
Could you tell us about Total Sports? So do you have mission? What are your goals? What are you doing in general?
Yeah. So Total Sports Management was my agency when I ran professionally as well. I ran for New Balance for 6 years after I graduated college, and Chris Lane, who is the managing director of Total Sports, he recruited me, and I ended up signing with him and had a contract with New Balance, and he was my agent for a long time. And I had a pretty bad injury, and he asked me to come on board and help out with the agencies. It was growing and getting pretty big at the time, so I sort of took on a part-time role to start with that really grew more and more into obviously now I'm an actual agent who manages athletes myself. But as an agency, we represent baseball players as well as track and field athletes. I don't have anything to do with baseball personally, but the agency does have a baseball division, and then I am in charge of operations for athletics, so all track and field, and yeah, we have sprinters, we have distance runners, we have field event athletes. We really try to be a really well-rounded agency because we wanna have athletes in every meet all over the world. Diamond Leagues, World Challenge. We want to have athletes in everything. So yeah, we really try to be very well-rounded, and we try to recruit some of the best track and field athletes in the world.
Do you have some mission? Mission, yeah. Do you have some?
I think as a company, our mission is to really serve the athlete as best we can, and as an agency, we want to be an agency that we represent the best athletes. We recruit the best athletes. We go after and put our name in the hat for people that we feel like are going to be successful and successful at the World Championships, or successful at an Olympics, and successful in World Marathon Majors and things like that. We want to be one of the best agencies in the world, and I think to do that, one, you have to do a really good job with the athletes that you have, and then two, you have to recruit the best athletes and try to keep growing and keep signing people.
So, how do you choose this whom to work? So, how do you find them? And is it possible for the Russian athletes to work with you?
Yeah, for sure. I think the main way that we recruit, obviously here in the States, is through the NCAA system. Now, we do represent a lot of European athletes as well, and I think it's one of our strengths as a company, and I think Chris really started this from when he really started the company years ago. It's just an eye for talent and people that you feel like can be successful, and a lot of that is, one, what you see and how an athlete looks, and then also getting to know that athlete and talking to them and figuring out, does this athlete have what it takes to be successful, and sort of like a talent scout type role. And I think Chris has done a really good job of that, and I think I've actually done a pretty good job of that myself too, when I got started and signed some athletes that other agents didn't really recruit, and those athletes have gone on to be pretty successful.
How did you find them? By just watching competition?
Yeah, watching competitions. I mean, I spend probably 200 days a year on the road. Obviously, I live here in Flagstaff, so I get to see a lot of athletes, firsthand training, and people from all over the world come here to train. So, I've gotten exposure to some European athletes that have been pretty successful and done really well, and I think because of the environment that I've put myself in here, as well as traveling the world to go to pretty much every meet, gives me a lot of exposure to athletes.
Do you look like junior championships or?
Yeah, of course. Keep an eye on it. I don't necessarily put a ton of stock into it. I think there's athletes that are successful as juniors that their bodies changes and everything happens like that, and some athletes are successful after they're really good as juniors, and some aren't. So I don't put a ton of stock into it, but obviously keep track of it. I signed the youngest athlete that I've ever signed last summer, high jumper out of Slovenia, and he's the under 16 world record holder. He jumped 222 as a 16-year-old. It's pretty good. So keep track of younger athletes, but also want to give them time to develop and make choices too. And I think he's in a good situation with his coach and his family, and they're very supportive, and they're not necessarily in a hurry either, which I really like. So that's how we started working together.
I know the story of one Russian girl. I'm not sure on which competition she showed her best results, but the next part, that the coach found her in Facebook.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and contacted her by Facebook.
Oh,
so
okay.
Is it the case for you?
Yeah, sometimes I get a lot of messages via social media, whether it be Twitter or Instagram. We do have a Total Sports email and website that we get some messages on as well. But yeah, I get a fair bit of messages on that. I don't necessarily recruit a lot of athletes that message me on there. I think every now and then it might work out. I think the best thing for an athlete to do is be successful at races and competitions, and that's how they're going to get exposure.
Oh, okay, got it. Thank you. And the next question: there is information on your site that you can help with USA visa and relocation, and it's kind of like this is a very actual question for now for Russian athletes. Like a lot of them, like almost all of them, they can't compete on the international level. So do you have some thoughts, or do you have some plan to catch up, to contact some Russian top athletes for relocation, for some proposal?
Trying to understand the question. So basically, are you asking advice to Russian athletes to sort of make a step up?
There are two questions.
Two questions.
So the first question is, are you following the situation with the Russian athletes? And do you think is this like some perspective case for your agency, like to catch some top athletes while they are like in this frustration situation?
Yeah.
Do you have some plans of that, or it's kind of like?
I wouldn't say that we have an active plan to recruit specifically Russian athletes, while they're in this authorized neutral athlete situation. I think our plan is always to look at sort of the top athletes in the world, and if we can, if we feel like we can work with that athlete. And again, a lot of times it's specific event areas that we feel like we want to concentrate on when we recruit. Like right now, we have a really strong women's 400. So if there was a really good Russian athlete in the women's 400, we might not necessarily recruit them right now, just because we have a lot of athletes that are going to be, we feel right now, probably top 10 in the world. And you just have to be careful with how many really high level athletes you represent in an event where you only have 8 lanes on the track. So we are specific about the event areas that we recruit in different times. Sometimes we're heavily recruiting sprints, and sometimes we're heavily recruiting distance and things like that. So I don't think there's any specific plan to necessarily target Russian athletes. Our plan is to more target areas that we want to recruit athletes in, and look all over the world to find those athletes.
And the second part of the question about visa and relocation.
Visas, yeah.
Yeah, so kind of like, do you really help athletes to relocate here? And so does it make more complicated thing than the athlete like is from Russia or from Europe or something like that?
It doesn't necessarily make it more complicated. We do a lot of visa service for athletes. There's a lot of athletes here in the States that come to school from other countries, and then when they decide to go pro and they want to stay here and train with different professional training groups or whatever the case may be, then they have to obtain P1 visas so that they can stay and train. And that's where our agency works with a specific visa lawyer to help obtain those visas. We've done visas for athletes from the UK to Ireland to New Zealand to Australia. I mean, we have quite a bit of foreign athletes that train here in the States, and we try to help as best we can with the visa process. But it's not always so clean. Sometimes there's obviously issues, and just here in my training group in Flagstaff, we have Canadian athletes that are on visas, we have Irish athletes that are on visas, we have Kenyan athletes on visas. So it's something that we do a lot, and I don't think it necessarily depends on what country the athlete's from. It's always a difficult process no matter what.
Yeah, and how usually does it take? Like
how long?
How long?
Yeah, it can take anywhere from 4 to 5 months sometimes to get a visa. You can obviously expedite and pay for an additional expedited service that makes it more expensive, but does speed it up. And some of those we've gotten in 6 to 10 weeks.
And a visa, is it like it's a green card?
No,
so
it's not a green card. So
how long can
a P1 visa is like an elite athlete visa that allows you to stay here between 3 and 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, for training purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And after that, do you have some specific,
Some
contracts?
athletes will apply for green cards if they've been here for a certain amount of time, like if they went to school in the States and they want to stay past their visa. Some athletes will just apply for a second P1 visa, depending on how long they want to stay. It really just depends on the individual athlete.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So the next type of question: could you tell us a little bit how athletes in the USA can earn money? So because like in Russia, for example, it's mostly salary from the government, and there are just like a few world-class top athletes who has a commercial sponsors.
Yeah.
So how is about here?
Yeah, in the U.S. it's a little bit better from a sponsorship situation in terms of we have a lot of U.S.-based shoe companies, because the shoe companies are based here in the U.S., there's more emphasis on marketing the athletes to try to prove, notoriety and prove that their brand makes good products. So, I feel like we're lucky in the sense that we probably have more shoe sponsorship than anywhere in the world. So there's a lot more athletes in that pool that are going to get sponsorship. We also have a pretty good road race system here in the U.S. that obviously has prize money for U.S. athletes. We have a U.S. championship road series that has events from mile, 5K, 10K, 15K, 20K, 25K, half marathon, and marathon that all have prize money that's U.S. based. So U.S. athletes have quite a bit of ways to make money in the sport. And then there's secondary sponsorships as well. And then there's also, we have track and field meets. We don't have necessarily the quality of meets that they have in Europe, but there's still a nice little circuit of races that athletes could stay here in the States and earn money and race.
Could you share like an estimation level for contracts, for prize money?
It really depends on the level that the athlete is at. If you have an athlete coming out of school that's a big time NCAA champion, who's done really well, and you have multiple shoe companies trying to recruit that athlete, that athlete could make well over six figures. And then you can also have an athlete that maybe doesn't have as many options, but a shoe company is going to take a chance on them and give them $15,000 to $20,000 to try to
per year, right?
Per year, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there could be a very big gap in
and
earnings
for some
between
like
athletes.
top athletes, it's like 100,000.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think? Is there a problem with doping in the USA? And very surprised by the Salazar case.
Yeah. I think there's doping all over the world. I think in the U.S. we have a good system for testing that maybe some places in the rest of the world aren't quite as developed in. But I unfortunately I think there's doping all over the world. There's when there's so much money out for stake, in the sport, I think unfortunately there's always going to be people trying to cheat. I think in the U.S. It's harder than some places in the world to get away with it. Now that could be obviously a bit of U.S. biased, but I think our testing system is pretty developed, and I see it here in flag how many times the athletes get tested and their availability to be tested. And
could you tell how many times they?
Again, everybody's different. It depends on the level that you're at.
For top athletes, it's once per month.
At least, yeah. I think one of my best athletes, Ed. I think one year he got tested close to 25 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And is it affect like the training, workouts?
Not necessarily. Sometimes it's urine, sometimes it's blood, but no. We do our testing early in the morning. So if testing want to show up, they have to be there between 5 and 6 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And he's usually up early. And every athlete's a little bit different. Some people do their hour at different times a day, and yeah, it doesn't affect our training too much.
About Salazar, what do you think? So it was a big surprise. So it was unexpected decision about.
Are you talking more of his ban from the sport, or
his ban of the sport and all situation? Like,
yeah, I was surprised of the not necessarily the drug allocations, but more of I was surprised at how he treated some of the athletes that were in his group, and yeah, I think that's the most disappointing thing, that there was athletes that felt like they were in a bad situation there, and yeah, as somebody that has a group, I would never want an athlete to feel uncomfortable around me as a coach or around athletes that they train with. I think that part really upset me.
Thank you. What do you think about situation in the Russian Federation about this athletic, about this like general ban on all athletes, because for now they are all banned, no matter
systematic doping. Yeah.
Do you think is this honest?
Well, my understanding is it's not necessarily all athletes, because if you are an authorized neutral athlete and can compete on the diamond level, diamond league level, or compete
for now they kind of like they can't get a natural status as well.
Yeah.
So everyone is banned.
Everyone is banned.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think obviously that's unfair. I think there's a lot of athletes out there that are probably doing it clean. I think I also understand World Athletics wanting to take their time to make sure that the system is in place to again control things, and control testing and control the problem that was there before. I think it's very unfortunate that there's athletes that are probably high level athletes in Russia right now that are clean, and they're not going to get a chance to compete at the world stage.
What is your opinion about track and field, marathons, running in general? Is this popular in the USA?
Yeah, I think so, for sure. I think there's a running boom in the U.S. right now with everything that's going on with the COVID. I think there's a lot of people have more time to spend on themselves and getting out and running, and I've noticed just a lot of my personal friends and even some family that have decided to pick up running now that they have a little bit more time, and I think it's pretty cool, and hopefully that carries over to the highest level of the sport too. If more people care about the sport, more people follow it, then there's going to be more money invested into the sport, and that's hopefully happens.
Can you compare this baseball?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to compare to baseball in the U.S. Obviously, baseball in the U.S. is huge. There's tons of money in it. The team system that they have is proven to be pretty successful. I think track and field, it's such an individual sport as well, and we've struggled to monetize that, but I also think that I also have seen growth over the last few years, and since my time starting in the sport till now, and I think we're moving in the right direction, just pretty slow.
Good luck, all of us. Yeah. I think it's a perfect trend. How important is the role of running clubs like Bowerman Track Club in the performance of athletes?
Yeah, I think it's really important, and that's what I'm trying to do here in Flag with Total Sports Athletes and the Under Armour group that I've helped start here. I think if you put really good athletes around each other and give them a supportive environment with coaching and medical support and everything they need to be successful, I think it gives them a leg up if they were trying to do that on their own, and I think when you put those athletes around each other, they can really be elevated to a new level. When I represent Shelby Houlihan, and when she's training, with other girls that are very talented, very highly motivated, and successful, then everybody raises their game to be able to train together. And I think that's really helped the U.S., especially in distance running. I think in the sprint world, we've always sort of had small training groups, and I think those groups are getting a little more popular now with shoe companies investing into those groups just like they do into distance running. But I think that's really made U.S. distance running take a step in the positive direction over the last 10 years.
What does athletics needs in the USA and the world, and like in general in the world, not only in the USA, to make it more spectacular, more popular, to attract more people?
That's a good question, and a lot of people probably a lot smarter than me are trying to figure that out.
Your personal opinion?
Yeah, my personal opinion, I would love to see more meets and more competition in the U.S. that drew fans and drew crowds. That's one of the best parts about going and racing in Europe, and I think one of the things that athletes really, really enjoy when they go over and they're in a Diamond League or they're in a World Challenge meet and there's 20,000 people there or 50,000 people there. I think that really helps elevate performance as well, and sort of creates that that special moment in sport, you know, that everybody sort of dreams about and thinks about. And I think in the U.S., if we could increase competitions and invest more into putting on high-level competitions, I think that would really help us. Globally, I think we're sort of on, I think World Athletics has made some adjustments to the calendar, and I think the calendar is one of the biggest things. When you have multiple competitions at the same times, and you can't have some of your biggest stars in the sport, you know, split between different competitions and things like that, I don't think that helps either. So I think trying to get on a consistent calendar could really benefit the sport.
And the last question. What advice would you give the young athletes based on your life experience?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and there's probably a lot of ways that I could answer the question. I think one of the biggest things for me was just always kind of, there's times that you're going to have tough training. There's times that things aren't going to go the way you want them to go, and you know, always having faith that you and your coach are going to figure it out and that you guys are going to be successful. You know, there was times where in my personal training that, you know, I probably was training in a way that wasn't necessarily the best for me, and me and my coach had made some adjustments and figured it out. And I think always trying to keep that positive attitude and always trying to, just keep looking ahead and keep, even when things are successful, I think one of the biggest things to keep riding that success is not necessarily rest on your laurels, and always, you know, keep looking ahead and trying to do more, and trying to figure out ways that as an athlete you can be better.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's a great advice, and thank you so much for the interview. It was great to talk with you. Yeah.
Cool. Good.
Друзья, ну вот такое интервью, я надеюсь, что оно вам понравилось и вы с пользой провели время. Особенно я рекомендую обратить внимание на последний ответ Стивена, на совет молодым специалистам. Друзья, с вами были Нина Зарина из США вместе с Стивеном Хаасом и Александр Лыджанин из Петербурга и канал Нелегкая атлетика. До новых встреч, друзья!